His 8 additional murder charges. Dahmer showed no emotion as he appeared again in court today. Channel 7's Paul Meinke was at the courthouse in Milwaukee, and he joins us live with the latest developments in the case. Paul?
John, Jeffrey Dahmer is back in his jail cell tonight being closely monitored by guards. He had earlier been placed on a suicide watch. He is now charged with 12 of the 17 murders that he has confessed to. If he has any fears for his own future or any remorse about the past, he didn't show it when he went to court today.
You're also charged in habitual criminality, which carries an additional 10 years on each count. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Jeffrey Dahmer spoke briefly in court today, only to say he understands the charges against him, though it's hard for anyone to understand his crimes. All of his victims drugged, murdered, and dismembered. Dahmer kept the heads of 11 of his victims in his apartment. He painted 3 of the skulls with a gray paint to look like models. Dahmer had sex with most of his victims either before or after drugging their drinks. But that wasn't true with 23-year-old David Thomas. Dahmer, according to newly released court documents, concluded that Thomas was not his type. Nonetheless, Dahmer says he murdered Thomas last fall, dismembered his body, but, quote, did not keep any of the body parts because the man wasn't his type. Even though Thomas's remains have not been found, Dahmer today was charged with his murder based on photographs identified by Thomas's family. The remains of 4 other of Dahmer's victims have not been found, and there may be charges ultimately in those cases as well.
The law does not require that there be a body, but the law is quite challenging when there is not. If and when, and I say if, there is appropriate proof, then we will file as we did in the David Thomas count.
Dahmer's attorney won't discuss his client's moods or conversations, but says he remains convinced that Dahmer's killing doesn't go beyond the 17 he's confessed to.
My client has told me that all incidents have taken place in the state of Wisconsin except one in Ohio.
It is possible that Dahmer may never go to trial, that he could simply just enter a plea. He has already, we know, confessed to the 17 murders. His lawyer would not comment on that possibility today. Also today, the Milwaukee Journal published the names of the 3 now suspended officers who failed to run a check on Jeffrey Dahmer back on May 27th inside Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, the night that Conarak Sinta-Sampone would be killed. The report says that those 3 officers are all held in high regard by their fellow officers and have even won numerous departmental acclaims. The release of those names is sure to heighten tensions in this already divided city. Live in Milwaukee, Paul Meinke, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. John and Marianne.
Okay, thank you, Paul. The families of many of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims were in the courtroom today. They sat quietly and watched intently. Channel 7's Chuck Gowdy has more on that part of the story.
Lives devastated by Jeffrey Dahmer. 60 relatives of Dahmer's victims in court to see the man who took their loved ones, to see that in their names and their memory, justice is done. The family of Anthony Sears, whose 1989 murder is one of the new charges against Dahmer.
He sat there like nothing had happened, that everything he did was all right, and he understands that he's going to be punished for this, you know. He didn't have, I'd seen no remorse at all up in that courtroom.
The family of Tony Hughes, whose murder last May is also a new charge against Dahmer.
He just looked cold still, you know. I don't, you know, that's the only way I can explain it. He didn't have any sorrow or any remorse or anything, you know, in his expression.
The family of Oliver Lacey from suburban Chicago, killed last month.
Was it hard for you to sit there and know that that man was 20 feet away from you?
I would sit there anytime they would bring him there. I would sit there. Anytime they bring him anywhere, I will be there.
Coincidentally, as the families arrived at court, so did some of Dahmer's tools of death. We found them being checked into the police evidence room, his refrigerator used to store body parts, and a tank believed to contain acid for dissolving human bones. It's believed that the medical examiner may have been looking for the remains of this man, whom we now know to be Dahmer's 16th victim. Stephen Toomey of Milwaukee, identified by Dahmer in a photo, but no remains found. They were possibly erased by the acid. Toomey had been living in this apartment house until September 1987, when his parents say they last heard from him. When Toomey missed several rent payments, the landlord told me he was evicted, or more precisely, his possessions were evicted, and according to this sheriff's record, sold at auction. Toomey hadn't been seen in months and was already dead at the hands of Jeffrey Dahmer.
But tonight it is very apparent that, like all the others, nobody ever tied Toomey's disappearance to Dahmer. Only when the veil was pulled off Dahmer's hideous secret 3 weeks ago did anybody here start making any connections. In Milwaukee, Chuck Gowdy, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Authorities in Ohio are continuing their investigation into the first murder allegedly committed by Jeffrey Dahmer. Today, police searched the Cuyahoga River in Akron, Ohio, where Dahmer says he threw a knife used to dismember hitchhiker Stephen Hicks in 1978. Investigators believe this knife would be a key piece of evidence against Dahmer. They've already found many pieces of bone on the site of a house where Dahmer once lived in Bath Township, Ohio. And tomorrow, those bones will be sent to the Smithsonian Institution for identification.